Hi, I'm Jeanette Roche. This is Bridge City News. Here are some of the top stories we've been following. An election is called in Canada for April 28th, with advanced voting to take place April 18th to 21st. Plus, Lethbridge's former mayor Chris Spearman runs for a Liberal seat as a member of Parliament in upcoming election. And Turkey sees its largest wave of street violence in more than a decade.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Jeanette Roche.
Thanks so much for joining us. Canada is officially in election mode. Liberal leader Mark Carney triggered the country's 45th general election Sunday with a visit to Rideau Hall to ask Governor General Mary Simon to dissolve Parliament. Carney says he is offering solutions instead of anger and division.
We are facing the most significant crisis of our lifetimes because of President Trump's unjustified trade actions and his threats to our sovereignty. Our response must be to build a strong economy and a more secure Canada. President Trump claims that Canada isn't a real country. He wants to break us so America can own us. We will not let that happen.
Taxes, affordability, and the trade war between Canada and the United States are concerns echoed with two other party leaders. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre is promising a middle-class tax cut of 2.25 percentage points compared to a promise Mark Carney made Sunday for a drop of 1%. Meanwhile, NDP leader Jagmeet Singh started the day in Montreal pledging to use suitable federal Crown land to build more than 100,000 rent-controlled homes over a decade.
The question is whether Canadians can afford a fourth Liberal term. After these out-of-touch Liberals inflated housing costs, drove up the cost of food, pushed 2 million people to food banks, unleashed crime on our streets, ruined our immigration system, blocked our resources, sent $500 billion to the United States, and made our economy more reliant on the Americans than ever before? Or is it time to put Canada first for a change with a new Conservative government that will axe taxes, honor hard work, build homes, cut taxes, lock up criminals, secure our borders, unleash resources to bring home our jobs, and stand up to Donald Trump from a position of strength?
Because of Donald Trump's illegal trade war, things are getting even more expensive. Thousands of Canadians are losing their jobs. The people who built this country are paying the greatest price, and that's not fair. They deserve a government that has their backs. You deserve a government that has your back, and we will fight like hell to make sure that happens.
The Alberta government has announced an investment of $800 million over 8 years in a cancer innovation partnership with Siemens Healthineers and the Alberta Cancer Foundation. The investment looks to help replace and update equipment, establish a medical research and innovation fund, and shorten wait times for cancer care and treatment.
First, our partnership will ensure the replacement and growth of equipment, software, and maintenance services used in diagnostic imaging. This includes introducing brand new technologies that are more effective and will significantly reduce wait times for patients. Consider this: a new artificial intelligence-enabled treatment unit could shorten the time from consultation to treatment from 2 weeks to 2 hours. With the value partnership in place, visits to emergency departments for oncology-related cases could be reduced by 30%, and wait times between a patient's initial consultation to receiving a diagnosis have the potential to be reduced by 50%. When every second counts, that difference could save lives, and we know it will.
In an 11-page court document filed Thursday, the former CEO of Alberta Health Services alleges the province's health minister and AHS have crafted a narrative about her that is, quote, completely unfounded, entirely fictitious, malicious, and replete with bad faith allegations. Anthana Menzalopoulos was responding to statements of defense from the Provincial Health Agency and Health Minister Adriana LaGrange last week, which both alleged Menzalopoulos was terminated due to her job performance. The document also alleges that during a January 2nd phone call with Deputy Minister of Mental Health and Addictions, Evan Romanow, the Minister of Mental Health and Addictions, Dan Williams, was, quote, concerned that the investigation could lead to potential connections between various government officials. In a statement released Saturday, Romanow responded to Menzalopoulos' allegations of what transpired during their January 2nd conversation. He said the purpose of the call was to, quote, confirm the status of AHS investigation. He went on to say it appears that Ms. Menzalopoulos has taken portions of that conversation entirely out of context, as though I was in agreement with or confirming portions of these concerns and allegations. And this is entirely inappropriate, untrue, and I find her willingness to distort my conversation with her to be hurtful and disheartening, given our histories as trusted colleagues. Menzalopoulos had previously filed a $1.7 million wrongful dismissal lawsuit against AHS and the province in February, in which she claimed she had been fired after launching an investigation into various contracts with links to government officials. A former chief judge from Manitoba has been appointed by the province to lead a third-party investigation into procurement. Alberta RCMP and Alberta's Auditor General are also investigating. Coming off of Sunday's federal election announcement, Lethbridge Conservative MP Rachel Thomas will announce her re-election bid on Tuesday for the Lethbridge riding. But she may have her work cut out for her, as a former Lethbridge mayor is looking to make change by running with the Liberals. BCN's Landon Hickok has more.
In what is expected to be a tight federal election campaign this year, a former mayor is looking to make ground in a typically conservative riding in the midst of a national Liberal resurgence. Chris Spearman announced he is running for a spot as a member of parliament under the Lethbridge riding.
I'm really delighted to have the opportunity to run. I think I'd like to be a positive politician. I don't want to see the type of politics where people only represent and only speak to the people that voted to them. We need to expand that, and we need to make sure that elected politicians speak for the whole constituency and represent that constituency when they go to Ottawa.
It is expected to be a tight race between the federal Liberals, led by recently appointed Prime Minister Mark Carney, and the Conservatives, led by Pierre Poilievre. Spearman, who served 2 terms as mayor of Lethbridge from 2013 to 2021, commended Mark Carney for his economic experience and vision.
I think we need a leader of a political party and a prime minister who fully understands the economy, who has had the experience in dealing with international finances. I think that we get that with Mark Carney. I think he can demonstrate his past experience both in Canada and internationally in dealing with those types of issues.
Spearman obtained the Lethbridge Liberal candidacy on Sunday, the same day Mark Carney announced the 5-week federal election campaign. It's expected that current Lethbridge Conservative MP Rachel Thomas will announce her re-election campaign this week. Additionally, the People's Party of Canada has named Clara Petillo as their Lethbridge candidate. Spearman says that he has a proven track record that should help to convince voters.
I have a proven record of elected public service. I think that counts for a lot. I hope that people take that into account and recognize that I tried to build up investment in this city and also make the city more affordable by controlling tax increases and the impact that the city had on them. We need to make sure that we're governing in a coordinated way, in a way that meets the challenges that Canadians have identified.
The federal election will officially be held on Monday, April the 28th. For Bridge City News, I'm Landon Hickok.
You can also check out the full interview with Chris Spearman on our Bridge City News YouTube page. Well, last week, in response to Canadian tariffs against Chinese-made electric vehicles and steel, China hit back with 100% tariffs on canola products and 25% on seafood. Currently, the tariffs only affect canola oil and meal, but CEO of Real Agriculture says they might eventually hit seeds too.
You know, we've seen a drop in the price if you look at the futures market or some of the cash bids that are out there. And it has farmers really questioning, hey, wait a minute here, and trying to draw connections. Like, how did this happen? And this all happened because of tariffs on Chinese EVs coming into the country. Those tariffs were put on Chinese EVs coming into Canada, basically working in cooperation with the Americans, where there was a real concern about Chinese EVs coming into the North American market through Canada into the U.S. So as a Canada-U.S. partner, Canada made the decision to move ahead with that. And now, kind of once again, this feels like deja vu, Canada caught in the middle here between China and the Americans.
Well, starting this Wednesday, March 26th, downtown Lethbridge will have 10 days of free parking spread throughout the year. Sarah Amies, executive director of the Downtown Lethbridge Business Revitalization Zone, says the pilot plan aims to attract more customers to the city center while supporting businesses.
Essentially, what we're doing here is choosing parking days on typically slower days to try and persuade folks to come into the downtown. There'll be free parking, so access to stores should be a bit easier for you. You don't have to pay the fine. You won't get ticketed if you stay over. So it's a nice way to encourage folks to come down for some worry-free shopping, if you will. Our first set of dates are the last Wednesday of the month between March and August. One day of parking equates to about $5,500 worth of revenue for the city. So they're being extraordinarily generous by providing us with this parking because it's to the tune of about $50,000.
It's great. I mean, on the weekends when there is free parking, we notice we have more customers. So I'm hoping that that will continue over when we have the free parking days. They should increase it, absolutely. They're having problems getting people downtown, and more free parking days would mean more people downtown.
Well, Sarah Amies says downtown customers will benefit from 4 free days of free parking coming up in December. And speaking of Lethbridge traffic, motorists may notice a change in the north side of the city. The city is introducing alternating left turn signals along 13th Street North, beginning with the intersection at 5th Avenue North. During one cycle, northbound drivers will get the flashing green arrow to turn left onto 5th Avenue North. In the next cycle, southbound traffic will get the arrow. They say the new system will give each group of drivers a clear and safe chance to turn left and will keep traffic flowing smoothly. The change will take place on March the 25th. If proven effective at this intersection, more may follow suit. Looking now to international news, 65 people, including 14 children, were injured in a Russian strike on Ukraine's northeastern city of Sumy, according to the regional prosecutor's office. The strike damaged several residential buildings and a school on Monday afternoon. Russian and Ukrainian delegates are meeting separately with U.S. officials to discuss an end to the war. Editor-in-chief of the Foreign Desk, Lisa Daftari, explains where these steps forward could lead.
Now, we've talked before, Jeanette, you and I, about how we cannot reverse what has happened in the last 3 years, meaning you cannot push Russia fully out of Ukraine without giving them some sort of parting gift, right? They will want whatever territory that they have conquered so far. They want those parts. I know Steve Witkoff went on to Tucker Carlson's podcast and went off about the 5 areas that would be given to the Russians. Look, these details will have to be sorted out. The fact that they're both coming to the negotiating table is a positive step. The fact that Zelensky agreed to the ceasefire, that Putin has come to the table, those are very positive steps forward.
Catch my full interview with Lisa Daftari of the Foreign Desk, who will also expand on the situation in Gaza and the anger poured out towards Elon Musk and his Teslas. That's all coming up after Business News. Also in international news, protesters poured into the streets of Istanbul, Turkey, after a court on Sunday formally arrested the city's mayor, Ekrem İmamoğlu, and ordered him jailed pending a trial on corruption charges. His detention sparked the largest wave of street demonstrations in Turkey in more than a decade. The jailed mayor is the main political rival of Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan. In other news, a weak and frail Pope Francis has returned home to the Vatican from the hospital after surviving a 5-week life-threatening bout of pneumonia. He also made his first public appearance. Here's Tricia Thomas of the Associated Press.
After 5 weeks battling pneumonia here at this hospital in Rome, Pope Francis finally made a public appearance. He was wheeled out in a wheelchair on a balcony behind me and greeted the hundreds of people that were gathered in this piazza. The Pope was looking very frail and just managed to wave with both hands and give the thumbs up. They did give him a microphone so that he could try and speak, and he managed barely, with a very weak voice, to say thank you, and then pointed out a woman in the crowd who had yellow flowers and said, "Brava." Yellow and white are the colors of the Vatican flag. Shortly before he appeared, the Vatican released his weekly Angelus statement, in which he said that he was saddened by the heavy Israeli bombing in the Gaza Strip that has caused many deaths and injuries. He called for an immediate halt to weapons and a resumption of dialogue. Shortly after his appearance, he was taken in a car back to the Vatican, where he will stay at the Santa Marta residence where he lives. And doctors here at the hospital have ordered 2 months of convalescence.
Well, while they're over there singing in Rome, we might be doing some singing right here in southern Alberta, but about the weather. It seems like it'll be time to pull out that old barbecue very soon. We could possibly even see our first 20-degree day of the year this week. I'll be right back with a full forecast. Well, although we are getting tons of spring-like conditions down here in southern Alberta, there are still other parts of the province that are under mountains of snow. And we just had to show off this one photo sent in from our loyal viewer, Linda. She's also a nature enthusiast, as you can tell. She captured this beautiful bald eagle resting on its nest, and she says that a river waterway was running through the Medicine Lake area near where this eagle was located in Jasper. She says there's lots of fish in that river that the eagle would relish. I'm sure that there are. It's just sitting up there waiting for lunchtime to venture out. It's so fun to see those shots. Now here in southern Alberta, Lethbridge particularly, looking like a very decent spring-like week. We saw a high of 17 degrees, slight chance of showers lasting into this evening. High of 17 on Tuesday as well. Lots of sunshine, 16 on Wednesday. Look at that there. Thursday, high of 20 degrees. Finally getting into that 20. Wonder if that will be a record breaker. Back to, we're actually heading down to 10 degrees the next day on Friday with clear skies. And then on the weekend, down to the single digits again. High of 6 on Saturday and 8 on Sunday. Even if we're seeing that high of 8 degrees, we're not doing horribly because that is the average high for this time of year. Average low this time of year, -5. 21 was the record high on this day, happening back in 1939. And in 1955, we saw the record low, which was -28. Sun rose this morning at 7:26, sunset tonight at 7:50. That means we are seeing 12 hours and 24 minutes of daylight. Okay, on the west coast tomorrow, mainly cloudy skies. In Victoria, high 15 degrees. Could see some morning drizzle in Vancouver, also 15 there. Clear skies mostly tomorrow in Edmonton, high of 10 degrees, and a lovely high of 14 in Calgary with a mix of sun and cloud. As we look to the rest of the prairies, we're seeing mainly clear conditions, high of 3 in both Saskatoon and Regina. Regina seeing some fog patches there in the morning, should be dissipating early on in the day. And then Winnipeg's again sitting at 6 degrees with mainly clear skies as well. Getting to the central part of the country, this is where we're seeing a mixed bag of precipitation rather, not participation, precipitation. We're seeing actually possibly flurries or showers there in Toronto, high of 5 degrees, 3 for the high in Ottawa. We're seeing flurries and then changing to showers throughout the day there. Montreal seeing a 40% chance of showers tomorrow with a high of 5 degrees. Atlantic Canada, very much the same as well, kind of with a mix of showers and flurries, looking at 30% chance of flurries, showers rather in Fredericton, high of 7 degrees. Sun and cloud expected in Halifax, high of 11. And 6 degrees expected in Charlottetown. Could see some showers there, mixed flurries and showers. Charlotte, or St. John's rather. Here's what's happening. In St. John's, we're seeing a 40% chance of showers in the morning. Make that flurries, 40% chance of flurries in the morning. Then they're getting quite a bit heavy rain by the afternoon. So 5 to 10 millimeters of rain there in St. John with a high of 8 degrees. So there you have it. That is your forecast. The head of Canada's auto parts manufacturing industry is not optimistic in any meaningful reprieve is in the works on Donald Trump's tariff threats on Canadian goods. April 2nd is set to bring sweeping new reciprocal tariffs from the U.S. on top of tariffs on some Canadian and Mexican goods that were delayed by a month. Weekend media reports suggest reciprocal tariffs could be narrower than initially announced and that the sector-specific tariffs are off the table for now. Point Roberts, Washington is a rare U.S. exclave that is so dependent on Canadians that the strain of Trump's tariff war is inescapable. Reporter Sally Ho with the Associated Press explains.
Let's put it this way. Obviously, Point Roberts is very unique in the fact that it's 5 square miles, 3 sides water and 1 side Canada.
I'm in Point Roberts, Washington. And if you want to get to the mainland United States, you'd have to drive around 20 miles around Boundary Bay to reach to the south. That's what makes it a rare U.S. exclave and a geographic oddity. This community has lots of dual citizens, and it's so dependent on Canada's goodwill that Trump's tariff war is now inescapable.
If we don't get the support from the Canadians, this town will die.
Generally this time of year, February, March, it's a slowdown. I mean, we're kind of a seasonal weather-driven store, but this year we're down probably 20% from bad.
COVID obviously was bad. That killed all of us. I counted at least 8 businesses that laid everybody off or went out of business. Now, this is the first time we're struggling because of one person.
Great, thank you. Want this?
And we know who that person is.
We've heard that business is down, Canadian visitors are staying away, and Point Roberts residents are left wondering what they'll have left without their northern neighbors.
Point Roberts has been a cherished getaway destination for more than a century, but now it remains to be seen what will happen to it without Canadian visitors. Now here's a look at today's markets.
The TSX was up 335 points on the day to finish at 25,304. The Dow was up 597 to 42,583. The S&P 500 was up 100 points to 5,767. And the Nasdaq was up 404 to 18,168. West Texas Intermediate oil was up 88 cents to 69.16 US per barrel. Natural gas was down 8 cents to $3.90 US. Gold was down $11.83 to $3,011.82 US an ounce. Silver was even to $33.01 US an ounce. Feed wheat is at $8.60 per bushel. Barley is at $6.65. Canola is at $12.92, and corn is at $8 per bushel. Live cattle were down 105 to $205.90 for the April contract. Feeder cattle were up 13 cents to $286.60, and lean hogs April contract was down 43 cents to $85.70. And the Canadian dollar was even over the past 24 hours to 69.80 US.
Recapping one of our top stories, Canada now in official election mode. Liberal leader Mark Carney triggered the country's 45th general election Sunday with a visit to Rideau Hall to ask Governor General Mary Simon to dissolve Parliament. Carney says he's offering solutions instead of anger and division. Coming up next, foreign affairs expert Lisa Daftari gives her thoughts on Elon Musk's role in Doge, U.S.-Russia talks on ending the war in Ukraine, another ceasefire proposal for Israel and Hamas, and much more. Also, when you see news happening in your community, be sure to send us an email at info@bridgecitynews.ca. You can also visit our website or our YouTube page anytime for more of our stories and interviews. Will there ever be peace between Israel and Gaza? And how close is Ukraine and Russia to calling a truce? It also seems there's a war brewing in the U.S. and even Canada now against Elon Musk's Tesla company, with many innocent drivers of the car caught in the midst of all of that too. So here to discuss it all is our foreign affairs correspondent, editor-in-chief of the Foreign Desk, Lisa Daftari, who joins us from Los Angeles. Welcome, Lisa. Great to have you back with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, so Lisa, people around the U.S. and now Canada have been going on this attack against Tesla, Elon Musk's company. So we've seen dealerships get vandalized, individuals' cars getting torched or spray painted, and the hatred is now seeping north of the border. And in Calgary, just recently, a Tesla was stolen, pushed into a river. And then here in our little city of Lethbridge, I know of Tesla owners who have been called Nazis. They've had their driveways spray painted. They're being flipped off daily while driving around. And I understand Americans are angry maybe about how Donald Trump has appointed Elon Musk to head up DOGE, or the Department of Government Efficiencies, and it's got people steaming. But Lisa, why are people in Canada attacking Tesla? Are they just copycatting? I can only imagine it's because maybe they're associating him with Trump, and many Canadians are upset about the tariffs. But what do you think? Is it necessary to do all this, or to paint the two with the same brush like that?
Oh my gosh, it's derangement syndrome, and it's very highly contagious. That's all I can say. Look, it's crazy. You're talking about the same leftists who said we will only drive electric cars, we have to ban all other vehicles, and all of a sudden, all of their anger and wrath is pointed towards the man who truly made the electric car universal. Many cars on the road being Teslas here in Los Angeles. I would say 3 out of 4 cars in this neighborhood when you're driving are Teslas. When you go into any parking lot, there are so many Teslas, and all of a sudden, everyone's angry. They're scratching up the cars. They are stealing the cars. They are attacking the charging stations and the dealerships. And for what? And they call themselves freedom fighters. And if you were to ever do that, against some cause on the left, you'd be a domestic terrorist. So a lot of hypocrisy. And why? Because Elon Musk has put his own time towards helping the government and to creating, more streamlined process, not wasting government funds. He wants efficiency, and people just are associating it with the Trump brand. They're associating it with tariffs in the case of the Canadians, I assume. But this is just derangement. To your point, when we were speaking off air, if you would approach any one of these people, they would not be able to connect the dots for you. All that they know is this very, very simplistic view of bad guy, bad guy, bad guy, and not really understanding what the bigger picture is. What is Elon Musk really doing for the government? Who is Elon Musk? Do they know that he just helped 2 astronauts who were floating in outer space come home to their families? Or is that not a headline that they want to get out there, because it paints him in a very positive light? He's a smart man. He's helping the government. You may not agree with everything he's doing. That's fine. But since when is it okay to burn down private property, whether it's a car or a dealership? These are individuals who own these cars, many of whom are Democrats, by the way. I've seen bumper stickers that say, "I bought this car before Elon entered the government," or whatever it says. I don't know. So it's more of the same derangement.
Hilarious. I was like, don't attack me. I'm on your side. I would attack my own car, except it's too expensive, basically.
Right.
And it was noteworthy there that so many things noteworthy. It's the irony is so funny about how, like, a lot of them are environmentalists and they're attacking the e-car right there, right? And then you mentioned the SpaceX. So his company is SpaceX, which just rescued those trapped astronauts. And Joe Biden didn't want to send NASA up there with a shuttle to get them, but Elon says, "I'll do it." And Trump gave the green light. So now astronauts Sunny and Butch are safely back home after being trapped on the space station for 9 months. But it does seem like no one's thanking any of them, and it is being lost in the headlines. So shouldn't they be getting some credit?
Oh, and a lot of credit for so many different things. We have had hostages come home from Venezuela, from Afghanistan, from Russia in the last, how long have they been in office? It's been, it's tremendous to think all the good that they are trying to do. And this is not a rant in favor or against Donald Trump's administration. What it is saying is that no administration is perfect, but while there was silence during the Biden administration, meanwhile there were so many foreign policy, national security mistakes. The border was open. We were letting crime just go rampant. We were letting these criminal immigrants come into the country, along with other immigrants who could not be absorbed, who were being raped and killed and getting diseases. And no one talked about the human rights. No one talked about the amount of taxpayer money that was going and being wasted to these frivolous causes. And no one talks about that. Everyone's just talking about the cancer research that will be cut. No, these causes are not going to be cut. There will be a way to balance this all out in a way that really prioritizes the taxpayer and then prioritizes the causes that require aid and those that do not. We should not be funding these frivolous causes in various countries. We should be taking care of our own and securing our borders on the north, south, crime in cities. I mean, look, this is the United States, and if you go into parts of Chicago and New York and Los Angeles and everywhere else where they have become sanctuary cities, and you see the way that these migrants are living, that is not a humane view on immigration, by the way. It's horrific the way that they're living. And these are the benign ones. We're not even talking about the ones that are killing and raping innocent American children, by the way. We saw a lot of those cases highlighted during Trump's speech to Congress. But anyway, the conversation comes back to derangement and being fair and really being America first, meaning regardless of who's in office, coming together as a nation and saying we hope to do whatever is right, whether it's Ukraine, whether it's Israel and Gaza, whether it's our border, our taxes, and of course our environment. Again, environmentalists being against the guy who actually wants to repair the environment and protect it for future generations. So a lot of hypocrisy, really. So if it were to be America first, we would see a lot of these Democrats and leftists at least being fair and giving some credit to the Trump administration and to Elon Musk.
Yeah, it does seem like some Republicans also have it against Elon Musk as well. So we have Vice President J.D. Vance speaking out against Elon Musk. So it seems he might be at odds a bit with the president about him. So what's Vance's problem? What is he saying?
It's interesting to see so much transparency with this administration and a lot of these conversations that perhaps should be had behind closed doors being had in public. Look, the position that Elon Musk has doesn't really give him the authority to speak over the president or the vice president. But at the same time, he is very vocal because his ideas are outside the box. Donald Trump actually was attracted to those ideas because he also thinks outside the box. J.D. Vance being a bit more of the traditional politician, he's worked his way up in politics. He's very young, but he does have political experience. I think, what it comes down to is them working as a team and really presenting ideas. But also, look, I think the Americans wanted transparency. We had talked about how we didn't even know that President Biden was as senile as he was. I think the Democrats were hiding that. We're trying to hide it very well, but it ultimately came out, and it cost them their election in many ways, along with other things like the economy and our borders and other issues. But I think that this issue with being transparent has to be taken with a grain of salt. We saw the conversation in the White House between Zelensky and Trump. Would we have been privy to that conversation in other administrations? Absolutely not. That would have been a closed-door diplomacy meeting, and a lot of screaming and shouting happens at those meetings. It's just that they don't happen in front of all those cameras, and now they did happen in front of those cameras. So it has to be taken with a grain of salt. When we see that maybe there is some sort of rift between the president and Elon, or Elon and J.D. Vance, or whomever, it's that we usually aren't given access to these conversations, and now we are.
Yeah, we do want to get into other parts of the country. You did mention that meeting in the White House with Zelensky. So speaking of, Russia, there are peace talks between U.S. and Russia. They're taking place in Saudi Arabia, I believe, right? In hopes of ending that war in Ukraine. So the two sides are discussing a ceasefire in the Black Sea, peacekeeping and ownership of territories, I believe. So what can you tell us about this, Lisa?
Right. So look, the fact that the Trump administration has brought the two sides together. What we're seeing right now in Saudi Arabia is representation from both sides, or delegations that are being sent there to start a conversation. Now, we've talked before, Jeanette, you and I, about how we cannot reverse what has happened in the last 3 years, meaning you cannot push Russia fully out of Ukraine without giving them some sort of parting gift, right? They will want whatever territory that they have conquered so far. They want those parts. I know Steve Witkoff went on to Tucker Carlson's podcast and went off about the 5 areas that would be given to the Russians. Look, these details will have to be sorted out. The fact that they're both coming to the negotiating table is a positive step. The fact that Zelensky agreed to the ceasefire, that Putin has come to the table, those are very positive steps forward. Now, is it, overly optimistic for the Trump administration to believe that they're going to get something out of this? Perhaps. But again, it is a positive step forward that we're even having these talks. They're taking place in Saudi Arabia. So kind of unbiased territory, if you will, in this case. And we'll see where it takes us from here. But again, the fact that both sides have sent delegation, the fact that we have our eyes on the prize, which is ending this war and giving an off-ramp to Russia. We heard Zelensky give a quote this morning that said, the person who started this war has to end it, kind of childish, but also emphatic. And, we hope that the two sides can make compromises to end this very senseless war.
Yeah, it's been awful. And speaking of wars, Elisa, it looks like that long-awaited Israel-Gaza truce could be in jeopardy as well. And a ceasefire abruptly ended last week between Israel and Hamas, with Hamas rejecting Israel's proposals to change the agreement in order to free more hostages. So it looks like it's resulting in Israeli airstrikes hitting Gaza, killing and wounding hundreds of Palestinians. And now Egypt is offering a new proposal to try and get the ceasefire back on track. So Lisa, what can you tell us about this?
So the ceasefire ended when Israel and the United States realized that Hamas is running circles around them in buying time. They weren't signing on to an extension of the current ceasefire. They weren't signing on to a new ceasefire, and they weren't agreeing to the terms of releasing the hostages. And I want to remind everyone, we have an American hostage and other dead bodies of American hostages that are also in Hamas custody right now, one being a hostage that is alive. And the negotiations really are revolving around getting him back, because the United States is now involved in the negotiations directly. Putting that aside, Israel has two priorities in this war. One, obviously, to get the hostages back and as many alive as possible, and two, to decimate Hamas. So when they saw that this was not going anywhere, instead of giving them time to really rearm for the next October 7th, they realized that they have to, go on with their second priority, which is decimating Hamas. And then the war began again. Very quickly, we see a lot of these headlines have this very incorrectly to say, Israel starts up the war again, and Israel is really escalating this war again. If the hostages would be given back, this could have happened on the next day of October 8th of 2023. This war would not have been where it is right now today. Everything revolves around the hostages for Israel. Israel could have flattened Gaza the next day, but what they are doing is very much treading carefully in order to get as many hostages back alive as possible. I want to remind everyone that the hostages are also embedded within residential areas or in the tunnel system. So Israel has to be very, very careful with pinpointed targets that do not jeopardize the lives of the hostages that may be alive. So it's a very, very difficult situation for Israel to calculate how to go about this. But the fact that there was not going to be another ceasefire coming up is why they resumed the war. Now, Egypt comes along and says, hey, I have another idea. How about you give back 5 hostages that are alive? And Israel, in turn, gives you the ceasefire, gives you the aid that you need going into Gaza, and also hundreds of Palestinian prisoners will be released. That's really the clincher here for a lot of people, because many of the attacks that we're seeing, including October 7th, including the planning and execution of October 7th, was conducted by prisoners that were previously released from Israeli prisons. So these are terrorists that are being put back into society to cause more terrorism and to launch more attacks against Israel. So it's cyclical, and it just continues and continues and continues. But again, to save even one life, Israel is willing to make those concessions. And now we will continue to hear from Egypt. And we're glad that, ever since the Trump administration came into office, we hear more from Egypt. We hear more from Jordan, because he has put the pressure under their feet to contribute or else be pressured into continuing, with the U.S. using its leverage to make the moderate Arab states really get involved and pay their fair share in terms of even ideas, collaboration, ceasefires, negotiations, and of course taking in the Palestinians if they should evacuate Gaza.
Lisa, it looks like we are out of time here, but thanks so much for joining us today. I appreciate having you on as always.
My pleasure. Thank you.
We all want our kids to get a good education, right? To get them prepared for success in life. But some of our kids struggle with learning for various reasons, and extra help is sometimes needed. We want to talk about that a bit today with Jason Kwasny. He's the principal of Palliser Beyond Borders, a school based out of Coaldale, Alberta. So good to have you with us, Jason.
Thanks, Paul. It's good to be here.
You bet. Can you first of all just give us a brief overview of what your school is all about?
Sure. So Palliser Beyond Borders started actually in 2014. We started as an online school. Previous to that, we were considered Pass Plus was the school that some of the people in the Coaldale area will be familiar with, and that was the outreach school here. Over the past 11 years, we've grown sort of away from that outreach model, and we've had more of our students go into the online program. So we offer all the programs and classes that students need to graduate. We are primarily a 9 through 12 school, although we're making some adjustments to our grade levels. It's absolutely wonderful to be able to give students around Alberta and actually around the world opportunities to continue on with the Alberta curriculum and be successful.
Okay. And now I understand some of your students have to interrupt their educational journey now. Maybe they had a medical condition, something like that, mental health challenges, or financial difficulties. Maybe it's a broken family situation, that sort of thing, right? And so they come to you, and I mean, what age groups are we talking about? You said grade 9 to 12, right? But is there a limit as to, I mean, what's too old to attend, right? So they've had something interrupted, so they're coming back to, get some help here. Are we talking like 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds? I mean, where are we at there?
Well, actually, and I'm sure she wouldn't like me to say this, so I won't use any names, but a couple of years back, we had a 76-year-old lady that came and finished her high school diploma with us.
Are you serious?
That's
amazing.
She had left high school early, had went into post-secondary, done a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, but it bothered her. She never had a high school diploma. So we did that. We had an 81-year-old gentleman last year that we helped to finish his high school diploma. So really, when it comes to, the top level, if students are engaged and they're ready to go and they have a desire, we have tons of adult learners that are coming back to upgrade, to improve either their stance in life, to improve their education and their post-secondary opportunities. And then we have some just come do it for the love, right? And so it's great.
Wow, I love it. And a part of your approach is to have a lot of flexibility for the students. So are there different methods of teaching and learning that are offered to the kids?
Absolutely. So, with our online programs, we strive for flexibility. We realize that traditional school is great for a lot of things, but for some of our individuals who are working, some of our younger students, although I did say grade 9, we are reducing our lowering our grade level to include grade 7 students to match the new high school here in Coaldale. So we'll get some new students, but some of them have difficulties, with sleep, waking up early in the morning, staying up too late. There's a lot of issues that are going on. Students that are working late into the evening are sometimes difficult to get in there. So what we require of our students is essentially, that they have an hour a day a class to put us, or an hour a day per class to invest into their education. And, along with that, we ask them to reach out to their teachers once a week. Now, when they're connecting and when they're putting in that time, that's sort of on their schedule. So we help them to create the schedules. They're driving the bus, I like to say, and we just like to help to give them a map towards success there. So.
Okay, so the times are definitely flexible for sure. And are there any different teaching methods that are used? I mean, some people, I guess, learn more visually. Some, I don't know. There's different ways of learning, right?
we try and give as many opportunities as we can. Accessibility is really important to us. So providing all the content in multiple ways. We use videos. We have live teacher sessions a couple times a week. So students are always welcome to come and connect with their teachers, either in those live sessions or one-on-ones to get really direct help. Tutorials, I like to say, more so than lectures. We have, print-based materials. We use a digital screen for the material, right? But just straight text, videos, audio. Really, we're trying to remove the barriers to instruction, provide the accessibility to the students, provide the flexibility to the students, and then remove the barriers so that they can meet all their educational needs and goals. So.
Right. So for the student-teacher interaction, you mentioned, they can come in person, right? And then there's others that do this online. And so if you're doing it online, can you I guess just meet virtually with via Zoom or whatever, and just connect with the teacher that way, and you both maybe share the screen, and they can go through, okay, here's how this works, and you fire away questions, all that kind of stuff?
Absolutely. We have, the tools are out there, right? We have virtual whiteboards so that we can have students, we can be doing math. Math to me, and that was my background, is the hardest one to do with a keyboard, mouse, anything like that, right? But we have virtual whiteboards and tablets and whatnot that we can write on to make sure that the students are able to see and not just hear what we're demonstrating, what we're talking about. We have all of my teachers have time during their day to connect one-on-one. So we call that asynchronous time, but it does become synchronous in some case where they're face-to-face with them. But they're responding to emails, communicating with parents. Parents are our number one tool to get their students engaged. We really try and get them on their end, to be asking their students, just like every other teacher, what did you learn today, right? What did you do in school today? And your teacher reached out and hasn't heard from you in a bit. Can you connect? So my teachers are always connecting with families and students, and that can be a one-on-one 15-minute meeting, talking about Shakespeare and getting really deep into that. And there's so much we can learn about students in that time. So, and then, yes, some students are coming in face-to-face, an hour here, hour there. It's wonderful. So.
Well, that's another question I'm sure people would have is, if you're online and now you're, of course, offering the opportunity to come in person, which I think is fabulous. But any concerns about socialization? I mean, if you're just online, and there's probably some of your students that are, mainly online, right? So any thoughts on the socialization aspect?
You know what? It's interesting, Paul, because I believe that the online gives them the flexibility to socialize in other ways, right? They are out there in their community doing volunteer work, because they are not doing the 9-to-5 school or the 8:30 till 3:30 school. So they're getting out there, they're volunteering, they're working jobs and everything within our school. One of our rules is when you're in class, your cameras are on. We want to see you. We want to see your face. We want to make sure that you're seeing your peers and classmates and all the cultural diversity that comes along with the Palliser School.
Okay, so there's that interaction actually when you're online. You're actually part of the class that's, depending, I guess, on what time is available for them. Maybe they're working night shift or something, who knows. But you're saying predominantly you're actually doing the class together with those who are in person as well and the others who are online.
Absolutely, right. We with some of our junior high programs, we see our students that connect afterwards, right? So in the hour breaks between classes, when they're working on homework, they're starting their own Google Meet and they're having play dates. When we had younger students during the COVID time, going to each other's houses, right? So it is different. But those opportunities are still there. It's not alone, and that's one of the things we really stress to families is. Your students will never learn alone with us. So.
Well, that's good. Yeah, we need one another. That's just one of my beliefs anyway. I do better when we've got people around us. And so likewise with support and maybe counseling services that are needed by some of the students by the sounds of it, right? And maybe, just different mental health challenges or, again, family struggles, that sort of thing. I'm assuming that's made available through school counselors, right?
Absolutely, and Palliser has a wonderful team of school counselors. One of their policies, if we can't get a student into some face-to-face counseling in person, is they never provide counseling if the student is at home alone. So we always want to make sure that there's somebody supportive in the event that something goes wrong. But we'll do virtual counseling with students as well, right? part of our new model with the outreach, sort of with us reinvigorating, is to have a live teacher for outreach students, no matter what class they are taking, no matter what grade, to be able to stop in and get assistance and get instruction face to face. But we also do an intake for these students to review all of their needs. So do they need counseling needs, mental health needs? Is there substance abuse issues? All of those pieces. So we can identify, what services to you put in place for each student, create that calendar so that we know, when to expect them in, and then follow up on those. So if students aren't coming in, which a lot of times they don't, they're committed when they're in the building, but a lot of times the minute they walk out, it slides away, and there's always something better to be doing, right? And so we can follow up with these resources and make them available, and it's really useful. So.
All right. Do you have any success stories you can kind of, share on how the program's been helping kids get back on track?
Absolutely, we have tons. Primarily high schools have those 3-year graduations, that 10, 11, 12 graduation scheme. We have a few students with us right now who are working on year 5 of a graduation plan. So Alberta Education provides funding for 5 years for students. So essentially grades 13 and 14 as well. We have a few students who have been hospitalized and receiving treatment for some fairly significant health concerns. And through flexibility, we'll take a 1-semester course, and we've had that students complete it over the span of a year, sometimes spanning summer, to make sure that, when they're able to work, when they're not receiving the treatments, they're able to engage with their teacher and keep going. And, one of our students will be graduating this year, and he's been with us for 4 years now, the entire time I've been with Palliser, and working through some very substantial health issues. And he's going through his diploma exams this past semester. It's going really well. So. All
right, good to hear. And again, online studies, so forth. Is there any challenges to actually monitor their progress to see how they're doing? Is that a bit more difficult or no?
Absolutely. When we talk about attendance, regular schools are looking at attendance and bodies in front of them every single day. We talk about attending to learning. So over the span of 1 week, we want to make sure that those students are logging into our learning management system. And we can see the tracks, or we can see the logs of how often they're logging in, how much time they're spending in their classes, how many clicks they essentially have as they're going through, and time spent on pages. So we can see, when they tell mom and dad, yeah, I've been into class. Yes, you did. You clicked one link, and then you went off to play video games. Or we can see, are they grouping it up on weekends or spreading it out over the week? So one of the things we look at is that those login informations. Then we also look at submissions. All of my teachers have, consistent assessments. So not just, the big high stakes exams at the end of the units, but assessments throughout their units that students can connect in. So how often are those coming in? How are we seeing, what's the quality of work that we're seeing from there? And then finally, how often are they connecting with their teachers, right? Like I said before, Paul, we expect at least once a week that they are going to communicate. If it's not through a live session, then through chat or email. And so we look at attendance and attending to learning as a 1 week sort of perspective. And we report that attendance over the span of a week. We get a lot of our students say, hold on, I was in biology at my school, and you marked me absent for that class. We say, no, we didn't see you for the whole week. So you might have been at biology in your school, but we want to see you a little bit more often. And so, generally,
the personal interaction there with the teachers can make a big difference, right? I think we all look back and go like, man, there's that one teacher who really encouraged me and made a difference in my life, right? So, hey, so for people watching now might be thinking, maybe my child would do well with this, right? So how do they enroll their kid in this?
The easiest way is to go to our website, palliserbeyondborders.ca, and just fill in a registration. What we do for all of our registrations is my admin assistant puts together a little intake form. We look at their academic history. We take a look at sort of some of their needs, and then I set up an appointment with every one of our new students where we have a conversation about what their academic goals are. For some students, it's a single class. For other students, it's a more developed program. And so we have those conversations, and we make sure during that meeting that our program fits the students' needs and the students able to fit our, expectations. And if it doesn't match up, if the students don't feel that this is the right thing for them, it's okay at that point for us to say, you know what, let's part ways. We can make suggestions for other programs that might work. But we're happy to have those students then, engage in our classes, get started with our orientation that I was telling you about before to make sure academics is forefront and technology is not getting in the way. And they can also call our office, right? 403-345-4421. And they can get more information that way too.
And you'd mentioned that you've got people from around the world. So if you live outside of the Palliser School District, you can still participate as well?
Absolutely. We, part of Alberta Education's mandate is to make our program available beyond just Palliser. Students from outside of Palliser are welcome within Alberta. When we start to look at international students and students who are outside of Alberta, there are some changes and there's some adjustments and conversations that need to be had. One is we do need to charge some fees out there because we're not getting funding for those. But absolutely, we have a young student who's actually playing WHL down in the U.S. and he's taking classes through us as well at this time. So it's wonderful.
Sounds good. Thanks so much for being with us today, Jason. Appreciate it.
Paul, thanks for the time. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about our program.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Jason Kwasny, he's the principal of Palliser Beyond Borders, a school based out of Coaldale, Alberta. I'm Paul Arthur. On behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News, thanks for watching.